Hi, I'm John J. Murphy, and I welcome you to the Change Mastery Show with my co-host, Dr. Pat. Together, we invite you to think differently about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a powerful opportunity for growth, empowerment, joy, and life mastery. My vision? To help millions of people shift from victimhood to leadership, from ego to spirit, and from hesitation and resistance to flow. This is an opportunity for you to get out of your own way and experience life with more courage, confidence, humility, and higher purpose. Get ready. The Change Mastery Show starts now.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Pat. This is an amazing episode. And, I've mentioned a few things along the way the past couple of years because I made statements like, we had COVID, then we didn't, as if COVID never happened sometimes, the way we handled it. But today's show is more than that. It's when it's time to say goodbye. First of all, John J. Murphy is going to challenge us to be mindful about our feelings about loss and to recognize that whatever you're feeling, you are asking for more. This is a conversation about what is going on. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It could be a child leaving home. It could be a parent passing. It could be an unexpected divorce. And in my case, I have been fired from every job I've had. So it could be that too. What is it about sorrow? Celebrate that, by the way, John, that's why some of us are in our own business, right? But this is, how do we go through this? Anxiety or appreciation, sorrow or celebration, fear or opportunity. And John, thank you for doing this topic because there's so much of this. And in my opinion, there's so much suppression around this. And it doesn't matter what it is, because people want to really downplay some quote losses, or sometimes when we leave something. Like, I don't know what it was like for you to grow up, but sometimes people grow up with, honey, you just better suck it up and move on, right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, you know what? We're downloaded with most of our subconscious programming by the age of 6. So, we go through life then repeating whatever the programs we're running on. So we want to, number one, recognize that.
Yeah.
And then the whole secret to a life of flow, which is what I like to refer to it. Everything is flowing all the time. Change is always happening. And if it wasn't, we'd all be dead. So, day turns into night and back into day again. The seasons change. Everything is flowing. 50 trillion cells in our body flowing, each cell doing 6 trillion things per second. It's mind blowing when you start looking at the science, right? And
Yeah.
and so if everything is flowing, and everything is cyclical, not linear. What goes around comes around. It's karmic law. Then we start to look at things like loss and saying goodbye in a whole different context, really. It's because there's almost no such thing. At the spiritual level, there's no such thing. At the human level, of course, people come and go, jobs come and go. You lose. I've lost loved, beloved pets. I've lost both of my parents. I've lost all of my grandparents. My kids have gone off to college. Everything's changing. So really, I think what's important about this episode is how do we process that? How do we process that? And you and I did a show earlier about two sides to the same coin.
Yeah.
Um, Grief comes, and but here's the thing: how long are you going to hold on to that grief?
Yeah.
I know people who are holding on to grief from 20 or 30 years ago. That's not healthy. So, feel the grief. I love this Zen teaching. I use it all the time. And that is that, you let the feeling in the front door and you let it out the back door,
Hmm.
but you don't invite it for tea. If
Mm.
it's a feeling like grief, let it go. Because if you don't, and you sit and have tea with it and you carry it around with you for who knows how long, grief has a frequency, an energetic frequency. Every feeling has a frequency. And I'll just reference Dr. David Hawkins in the Map of
Yeah.
Consciousness. We've talked about that before. But
Yeah.
when you start to realize that every feeling has a frequency, and like frequencies attract like frequencies. And like Einstein said, this isn't philosophy, this is physics. If you match the frequency of the reality you want, you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. Albert Einstein said that. So we start to think about, well, if I'm feeling grief, if I'm not careful, I'm just going to call for more and more grief into my life. Misery loves company, right?
Yeah.
So the idea here, Dr. Pat, is that in my experience, and I've been practicing this for a very long time, is that you recognize the human feeling, the instinct to feel afraid or to feel grief. Um, you process it and then you let it go. But one big mistake people make, and I want to caution everybody on this, is that you don't lock the front door. You
Mm,
don't fight it because it just anything you resist grows stronger. So if you fight, sadness, sorrow, you fight any feeling like that, um, it's not a good idea.
mm-mm.
So process it and let it go. That's the major
Yeah.
message for the show.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, a lot of times we think of loss and saying goodbye to people who've died, jobs that, we were fired from, big changes, divorces. I've been through two. We could talk more about that too.
Yeah, we
But
will.
saying goodbye is like, well, I had to say goodbye to yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
last night. I had to
Mm-hmm.
say goodbye. I'll have to say goodbye to today, tonight at midnight.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. And so, as we learn to just let go of anything from a day or a lousy moment during a day, or even a celebratory moment in a day, a victory, uh, it's gone, So, and another key takeaway I want people to think about today is that when you do reflect on the past, whether it's yesterday or 10 years ago, how do you feel about whatever it is you're thinking? Because I like to use this formula and it's helped me immensely. The formula is simply T times E equals F. What does that mean? T is thinking. It's what we're thinking. What is E? It's the emotion fueling the thought. And the F is a feeling. So, and as an example, if I think I might lose my job, AI's taken over the world. That's what I'm thinking. And it's fueled by only one or two emotions, love or fear. And I'll reference A Course in Miracles here. And actually,
Yeah.
there's only one emotion, only one. And it's capital L love, unconditional, sacred love. Fear is the resistance to that. That's what triggers fear. So when you start boiling it down to two emotions, so to speak, if I'm thinking I might lose my job and it's fueled by fear, what's the feeling? Anxiety, worry, stress. Huh. What if I think I might lose my job and it's fueled by love? Well, I'm going to land on my feet. Maybe
Yep.
it's a blessing in disguise. Um, I'll get through this. Maybe it's just what I need. It's a completely different reaction or feeling, right? So anything we think we should examine, be mindful of, we become what we dwell on. And then we have to examine the emotion triggering it because the
Yeah.
fear-based emotion is low frequency, going back to the map of consciousness. And the love frequency, and by the way, when I say love, I'm talking capital L love, where it's not conditional at all. It's sacred, it's divine, and there's no forgiveness because there's no judgment. What are you supposed to forgive if there's no judgment?
Yeah.
No condemnation, right? So when you think about sacred love, there's no forgiveness because there's no condemnation. That's a really strange way to think about things.
No, but it's
What do
so
you mean?
really important though, John, because and look, you have had to say goodbye countless times, and I want to talk about that. But you know what I'm really struck by in you speaking about this? I'd never thought about this before, because one of those firings was after a 25-year career, which I pretty much look back on, but I don't know if this is your example, but I want to tell you about it. Maybe you could talk about yours. I remember as my boss is ripping my badge off of my neck because I refused to fire somebody 1 month short of a 30-year pension. And I was so clear about it. And she's ripping my badge off. I had a moment of peace. And my next move wasn't anger, it was this thought: I better get on the phone and call Columbia. I wonder, because she fired me. I got the whole package and everything. Hello. I wonder if they still have my application. I mean, I didn't even, that was the act. It was not even a thought. It wasn't a fear. And to this day, I still don't remember how I got from New Jersey to Columbia in 45 minutes because it wasn't thinking. It just was happening. And I was at such a place of peace. And I wonder if that's part of the unconditional love. What have you discovered in the countless times you've had to experience this?
Well, wow. I mean, I've had so many significant changes and things to say goodbye. I can go back to my childhood. I was in and out of the hospital so many times. My mother wanted to put a doctor on retainer. I've had all kinds of broken bones, my foot, my knee, my hip, my ribs, my head, concussions, my neck, a C7 discectomy. I've had basically a lot of pain, so to speak, physically. Career wise, I get fired every year, essentially,
Yes,
because I'm a consultant, and my
I
job
know.
isn't to stay long. My job is to go in and help and make a positive difference, and then leave and say goodbye. I'm saying goodbye all the time, and so. Again, I refer to this as flow. If we ride the wave of life, we ride the waves of change, and rather than resist them, first of all, we age a lot slower and we feel a lot better. Instead of worrying about, I'm getting old and I
Oh,
just can't do what I used to do, and you just all this negative self-talk. No, say goodbye to that. So in
yeah,
fact, a lot of things we want to say goodbye to, like negativity and even people who weigh us down. Time to say goodbye. So in my case, yeah, growing up, I had to say goodbye. Well, I thought I had to say goodbye to a dream of mine, which was football, and I wanted to play at a professional level. And I ended up running my foot through a lawnmower in high school and was told I'd never play again. I think you've heard that story. And
yeah,
after 10 hours of surgery and a week in the hospital and all this reconstruction. I decided not to believe the doctor, and a couple years later, I was playing again. I wasn't ready to say goodbye to football just then, but then there came a time when I did have to say goodbye. But I took those skills, the discipline, the strategy, the improvisation, the team building skills into my profession now. So I still play on Saturdays, so to speak, but not necessarily Saturdays and not on a football field. I give keynotes, and I speak to people. And then guess what I have to do at the end of the keynote? Say
oh,
goodbye,
I
right?
know.
Move on to the next project, move on to the next assignment. So just embracing the changes. But now in my family, in my marital situation, I was married for 26 years and madly in love with my wife and four wonderful children who later went off to college and now work different places around the country. And saying goodbye to that old family living room scene, if you will, Christmas scene or holiday
Yeah.
scene or whatever. But after 26 years, my wife said, I don't want you anymore. She wanted to go another direction. And I mean, she still calls me to this day, but it was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
And but here's the thing, and this is a tool I share. It's an award-winning book I wrote back at this time called Beyond Doubt: 4 Steps to Inner Peace. And I was resistant to that actually at the time. I think I've told you the story where in 2000, when my father passed and I had to say goodbye, that was tough. I stopped writing for 9 years. I just stopped writing. And then in 2009, I literally channeled this book. There was a sacred presence in my room insisting I write again. And I was resisting. I was saying, no, 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 I don't know what to write about. I'm busy. It persisted and I gave in. And guess what the 4 steps to inner peace were? let be, let go, let see, and let flow. And this is right before this divorce. I'm writing this book out of nowhere. And so what's let be? Essentially, stop resisting. So to even write this book, I had to be present. I had to be open, and I had to let go of resistance and doubt. And when I did that, I started to see differently and then get into the flow of writing. And I wrote this book in record time. It was published. And I thought, well, I guess I'm writing again, Dr. Pat. But what I really learned later is that, no, John, you were given a recipe for handling a very difficult
Yeah.
period in your life that's about to happen. And I didn't
Mm.
know it. So now all of a sudden, I'm served papers on a Saturday morning, and she had left the house, and there's a tap on the door, and some kid hands me an envelope and goes, "Good luck, dude," something like
Oh,
that.
jeez, John.
Like what? What? I mean, so in a week before this, my wife was trying to get me to take her and the kids skiing out in Colorado, which we'd done the prior. This was at
Yeah.
springtime, and but that meanwhile she's talking to a lawyer, and planning a divorce. It was really
Wow.
mind-blowing, Dr. Pat. But here's the thing, what's the let be? It's accept what is. You can't change what is or what was. It is. So you can fight it. You could say it shouldn't be that way. This, you're wrong, I'm right. All this conflict about what is. So accept it. It's like contemplative. It's neutral. It's
Yeah.
it's it just is. I don't have to like it, but I can see it as an opportunity for improvement
Mhm.
and accept it. So then let be is let go of the anger, the hurt, the suffering, because I was hurting. And so I had an opportunity to practice these 4 steps immediately, which helped told me this wasn't just a book to write. This was a,
Yeah.
a formula, if you will, a recipe for a transformational life. But fast forward, I started to see her with more empathy and compassion, even though she and her attorney were pretty hostile. And
Mm.
I got into a flow state, so to speak, where life is more effortless. You're going with the flow, not against it. And fast forward, I never even got a lawyer, and we
Wow.
found a way to settle, and I took her to court, drove her to court, and then took her out for lunch afterwards. So that's what I would call true forgiveness. And when I look back on any of the time we had together, it's positive. I'm
Yeah.
grateful, not grieving. I feel saved, not suffered. So it's that shift in mindset about how we handle loss that makes all the difference. And this this ring of peace, these 4 steps
Yeah.
were just immensely helpful for me. This is back in 2010, so
Yeah.
16 years ago. Um, we don't have to hate each other.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about now is we're giving people the option to explore a healthy, so to speak, a healthy way to process goodbyes. And, some people maybe listen and say, ah, okay, that's just divorce. No, but we're giving them a way to process goodbyes, period.
Mhm.
And so that's what we want to make sure people understand. I love that you talked about the ring of peace. Can you say that a little bit? Say a little bit more about it because you just mentioned it and it sounded so cool to me. I would love for you to talk to our audience about what that ring of peace is.
Yeah, well, I call it a tool, and any skilled uh, person is going to have a tool set, that works. And so it's a tool that we have to use to get value out of. A lot of people have tools, golf clubs that sit in their garage, they never play them, or hammers and saws and screwdrivers, and the tools just sit and collect dust. No, this is a tool you need to practice every single day.
Yeah.
And the 4 steps I teach are not sequential. I mean, they're not linear.
Hmm.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, we're done. it's really it's a circular model. So we
Yeah.
continue to do iterations of it. And the more we do, if you turn that circle this way, we ascend. It brings our consciousness and awareness to a much higher level.
Hmm.
So it's a tool for awakening. And the practice is, in fact, I teach it in the book, which is now out, by the way, on in audio as well, so people can listen to it. I teach
How
the
do
Ring
they
of
get a
Peace.
copy of the book? Where is the book available, John?
Oh, it's on Audible, Spotify. It's, you can get through Amazon.
Right.
The but I teach it backwards, and the reason I do that, Dr. Pat, is because we can all imagine and remember states of flow.
Hmm.
So I wanted to teach it in such a way that, oh, this is way out there. I'm miserable. I can't do this. No, you've been in a state of flow before. Maybe you were dancing. Maybe you were drawing pictures as a child. Maybe you were writing something, okay, or playing a sport, anything, playing an instrument. You were in a state of timelessness. You weren't working, you were playing. So that's a big difference. You
Yeah.
weren't in a state of resistance. You were just in a state of allowing. And so when we can appreciate, oh yeah, I get that. Yeah, I've been in flow. Okay, well, we've just proven you can. So now what? How did you get there? Let's go
Yeah.
backwards from that.
Yep.
Well, you had to see it in your mind's eye. It's kind of like an architect. Before there's a building, there's a blueprint, right? You see it before you build it. So, what did you see in your mind's eye to get you into that state of flow? Did you see yourself playing beautiful music? Did you see yourself running for a touchdown? Did you see yourself painting a beautiful picture? What did you see? And so vision is essential in growth. So
Yeah.
what do you see in your mind's eye right now? People could say, well, I see the economy is a mess. I see the earth is falling apart. I see the government doesn't know what it's doing. I see people that my neighbors are, they're annoying me. And really, so what do you see? And if you want to get into a real true state of flow, you have to see it. Okay. Now, how do you see it when you got all this baggage and you've been beaten up your whole life and you're carrying all this suffering around with you and grief and hostility and anger, even hatred? How are you supposed to see positive when you got all this junk weighing you down? Well, guess what? You got to let it go. You got to let it go. So I'm working backwards now. That's the let go step. So, and how do you know what to let go of? You got to be
Yeah.
present and you got to evaluate what you're feeling. What are you feeling when you think certain thoughts? That's back to that formula. Well, if I feel upset when I think about what somebody did to me last week, okay, first of all, you can't change that. The only thing you can change is your mind about that because it's over.
Hmm.
So what are you gonna let your mind do? Keep you in a state of misery? That's when the mind is controlling you and instead of you controlling the mind. People confuse this all the time. Who's controlling who? So when somebody says something as simple as I changed my mind about that, well, who's the I? We've talked about this too. Who's the I
Yeah.
saying that?
Yeah.
That's your true self. Capital I. And capital S self, sacred soulful self, not the ego self. So when we start to really think about that and we reverse the ring and we say, so okay, so John, the formula is this. I need to just take time each day to meditate, to stop, to just contemplate, to just evaluate my feelings. And I recommend counting your blessings
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
because
John.
you
Oh,
could
come
have
on.
You could have
Come on.
99 wonderful things going on and one lousy thing going on, and we pick the lousy one to dwell on. No, don't go there. So get in touch with your feelings. This is essentially emotional intelligence. It's a core competency, self-awareness. Get in touch with how you feel. Get in touch with what you're doing. Get in touch with what excites you, your moments of bliss, because that triggers flow. What do you just love doing? And then what's getting in your way? What consider that your competition. Any force against you is a form of competition, an obstacle. And by the way, most of those obstacles are in your own mind. They're not out there somewhere. And then you just continue to practice this. And this is where I'm going to say something that's catches people off guard sometimes, and that is that your greatest adversaries, even if you call them enemies, are your greatest teachers. Wait a minute, how am I supposed to learn anything from that person? They're 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 this or they're that. And the answer is, well, they're teaching you something. Consider that. What are they teaching? Maybe they're teaching you patience. You
Yeah.
know, maybe they're teaching you to back, to let go a little bit and try to empathize. Everybody's got a story. Do you know their story? Do you really understand what's maybe triggering their attitude, right? No, they're just being a jerk. Well, there's something deeper than that you might want to look into before
Yeah.
you start condemning. And again, with karmic law, you condemn anyone, you're condemning yourself.
Yeah. John, I want to take a short break here because when we come back, I want to break it down for people. And let's give some examples. I mean, you've had job loss. I've had job loss. We've seen mergers and acquisitions. I was part of the divestiture team that helped break up the phone company. And then I was chosen to help put back the other company, which I never saw coming. So there you go with that. But there are so many things. I mean, your stories about football. And here's the thing. I was told I'd never play professional table tennis again because my knees had deteriorated. But that was by somebody that didn't see the future. And the future was and is today the technology of bone body replacements. And, when COVID came, I was like, OMG, I'm going to get my two knees replaced. And so it is about a perspective and it's about what we believe, but it's also about what you said before. I think doubt is so insidious. So, what I want to do is I want to take a short break and I want to come back and I want to talk with you about the things that people are carrying, even the smaller ones that they don't think are worth addressing, right? We're talking about I just moved from this Seattle to New Jersey, and
Mm.
people are like, why? And because they don't choose to understand why I did that. Now, did I have to say goodbye? Was there a process involved? How did it feel? When we come back, how did I make that decision? Was it hard? Did I agonize? Or was it something John just talked about? When
Mm.
we come back, we're going to talk about those things, share some stories, share some solutions, because what John is talking about works for everything, everything. And when we come
Yes.
back, I honestly, I had to say goodbye to the tip of my thumb because I wasn't paying attention to cutting an apple.
Mm.
John, before
Mm.
we go to break, how do people find out about you? How do they follow you? Some of the videos you're doing, where do they find all of that?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn is I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, and
Okay.
it's John J. Murphy Mystic, and then I've got a YouTube channel where you can watch the replays of this show along with a lot of others. It's author John J. Murphy on YouTube, and I have a podcast called Fearless with John on YouTube. So there's that's one way, and then people can reach me through my website, which is
Yeah.
johnjmurphy.org.
When we come back, a friend of mine said, mass population of fans are grieving right now. No, not about the Knicks loss last night. It's not about that. Massive amount of people are grieving right now in one particular sport. Can you guess what it is? Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Have you ever faced a situation where you weren't quite sure how to handle it with poise, confidence, and grace? Of course you have. We all have. Well, tune into the Change Mastery Show with me, John J. Murphy. Together, my co-host, Dr. Pat, and I will introduce you to a different way to think about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a gift. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe, share, and start your journey to mastery at johnjmurphy.org.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickiworldart.com.
Have you ever faced a situation where you weren't quite sure how to handle it with poise, confidence, and grace? Of course you have. We all have. Well, tune into the Change Mastery Show with me, John J. Murphy. Together, my co-host, Dr. Pat, and I will introduce you to a different way to think about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a gift. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe, share, and start your journey to mastery at johnjmurphy.org.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the Change Mastery Show with John J. Murphy and me. And this isn't a great episode. It's when it's time to say goodbye. So John, here, growing up with Mama Doris. So yeah, I told you about my stepmom, right? She is the woman that gave me the perseverance, persistence to learn how to read and write even. But Mama used to say, girls, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. What Mama didn't say though, she used to say that. But what she was talking about, and she had a million of those expressions. She said you have to know when to let go, but she never really explained to us the emotional side of this. She didn't explain how to do it. She didn't explain the process of doing it. And I think that's what we're talking about today. But I want to also talk about in this episode how to understand these human frequencies and feelings. I was stuck in my dissertation, a really critical moment, when I'm at the point now where I had to come up with a theory that I was going to research. And I have some interesting dynamics that go on with my learning, and I couldn't articulate it. So I was at a school with a guy that literally talked about flow, and I used to call him Dr. Me. So I went over to see him, and I said, listen, Me, of course, that's not his name, but I couldn't pronounce his name. I did later on, but I said, listen, Dr. Me, I need some help. I'm really at a roadblock here because I have to draw this diagram for theories. I got to put these theories together. He said in a really broken tongue, what are you doing? How are you doing it? I said, I don't know. They made me do it. He said, stop. What do you like to do? Can you draw? I said, I love to draw. He said, do you like to speak? I said, no, I'm not good. I don't want to talk about it. Now, you'd never know that. He said, but what do you like to do? Are you creative? I said, I'm highly creative. I can create things. He said, I want you to go and I want you to take a flip chart, a flip chart. And he said, I want you to draw out in circles, images. I don't care if you use animals, he was saying. I want you to draw the relationships you want to demonstrate that work from your experience of job loss and broken promises. That was the best thing. And people might be thinking, why didn't you figure that out for yourself? Well, I didn't. And what I drew out was something that had never been studied before because the box I was being put in on the professor other side of the committee was you have to study something that was done before. But he allowed me to draw out something never studied before, which is broken promises between two people at work, not a company and a person. And I draw this chart and I brought it into my chairperson advisor, Dr. Carolyn Grandrose. She cried. And we went on to do that study together, postdoctorate together. We published articles together. But he was the one. Now, was it flow? Was I in that moment? All I could tell you was I was in such a state of peace. I don't remember thinking about any of that, John. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not going to underplay the amount of work I had to do that. But in life, there are things we go through. There are times we go through it. Sometimes as children, our parents poo-poo it. Sometimes our bosses poo-poo it. How can we help people today to turn this loss into opportunity, to turn something that may be weighing them down without judgment about how big the thing is?
Well, first of all, you know what, I believe his name's pronounced Chickmahaley.
Yeah,
But he took you into the let's see phase. So let be, let go, let's see, let flow. So to get you into a flow state of mind, he had to challenge you to examine what do you see or what do you want to see. So get a flip chart, start drawing circles, throw some color in there if you want. Uh, but all of these steps without the others essentially neutralizes the whole model. So
exactly.
if all you do is focus on letting go, then what?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you want to. That's why I like to think about it backwards, because he talked to you about what really brings you the greatest joy in life.
Yes, he
I
did.
call it I call these moments of bliss, and it's just a blissful state. So to me, true success, it's not about how much money you make or what your job title is or even what you look like. It's how do you feel? And at the highest levels of the map of consciousness, you're just below enlightenment, which is way up there, are peace and joy. And so a true successful life is where I'm at peace every day. I'm in just living in a state of grace. I'm joyful. I'm appreciative. Those are very high frequencies. And you don't get there when you turn on the news or you go to some sporting event and you come home all angry or mad, or it's temporary. If your feelings are just temporary, you get moments of joy and then you're back to, grumpiness or whatever. Um, or you get, joy when you go out and eat a big fat meal at a nice restaurant and get all dressed up. Then you go home and you complain about the news or whatever. That is not, that's not what I would call a true life. The life we're meant to live. We're blessed from day one when we're born. We're blessed when we're conceived. We're sacred beings. We're spiritual beings in a temporary human form. And so this is when I talk about challenging assumptions, even the assumption that we die. Okay. No, we don't, actually. We leave this human skin and we move on to where we came from. It's cyclical, it's not linear. And when you start to really dig into this and you look at the science behind it, I was recently at an event with Danny and Brinkley. Danny has been clinically dead 3 times now, wrote the bestseller Saved by the Light. It's an absolutely remarkable
Yeah.
story. And Anita Moorjammy, her story is phenomenal. Eben Alexander, these are people that were essentially gone and came back to tell us, to teach us, to share with us what goes on when the body does shut down. And so that right there challenges a paradigm that everybody, practically everybody, a lot of people think that, hey, uh, we got one life to live and that's it. Then we hear songs, that I love YouTube, by the way, but you hear songs like, I can't live with or without you.
Yeah, right.
Figure that out. Well, you're alive right now, aren't you? Are you with or without? Like, it's romance, it's drama. But if you really want to live, if your vision is a life of peace and joy, where you bring that to other people, they just like being around you because you're just amazing, actually, and you have the potential to be.
Mm,
People are attracted to that. How do you get there? First of all, you visualize it and you program it, which means you deprogram, you delete a whole lot of stuff maybe you grew up with. Say goodbye to that. I mean, I think you could actually make a list of 10 things right now to say goodbye to. This
I'm with
this
you.
is yeah. So a practical way to let go. There's your let go phase. Take inventory in the let be phase. Be present. Take an hour to just think and contemplate. What are 10 things I could let go of? 10 feelings, 10 attachments. Here's the thing, you're never going to live without fear if you're attached to something that has value to you that you have no control over. So wait a minute, if I attach myself to another person, I attach myself to a job or an identity or a house, anything that's temporary and anything I have no control over, I live in perpetual fear of losing it. So is that how you want to live your life? Afraid? Well, I mean, John, are you saying there's an alternative to that? Isn't everybody afraid? No. No. What are you afraid of? Well, the sky might fall. Well, that's a projection of something negative, and I don't believe that. I don't think the sky's going to fall. All right. So when we're afraid, it's because we're projecting something's going to go wrong. It's a projection, it's an assumption. Why don't you change that? Let go of that belief. And I think if people sat down and they said, what are 10 things right now weighing me down? Could be the name of a person that you're holding a grudge against. Okay. Probably got 10 of those. You know, or maybe it's somebody that it's time to say goodbye. You know, I'm not comfortable being around this person anymore.
Yeah, boy.
No, I don't like my job, so maybe I should start thinking about saying goodbye to that. Okay. Or it could be a habit that's weighing you down. You know what? Maybe I should say goodbye to that. So I think if you want to be practical, and I've said goodbye, Dr. Pat, to so many
Oh
things.
my God, I know. I
You
know,
know, during
John.
the 2009 recession, this is
Oh, let's talk about that for a minute, shall we?
yeah, so think about this now and by the way, we can talk COVID too after that, but as a independent consultant, when the recession hit, contracts dried up, companies went on, into paralysis, trainers and consultants were easily dismissed. And I got hit at the same time with the news my wife wanted to leave.
Wow.
Lot to let go of. I'm living in a gorgeous, 8,000 square foot waterfront home and a beautiful lifestyle, traveling the world, teaching. I mean, it was like amazing. And, the recession hit, and that was rough, and then the divorce and all that. But I was technically bankrupt at that point. We had to sell this house for less than we bought it 11 years earlier and I'd
Yeah.
put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it. It's a beautiful home and sold it for less than we bought it because of this dramatic recession and the money that we lost in the markets, things like that, and then the divorce. So I went from living in a 7,000 square foot home to 8,000 square foot home to an apartment with no furniture. with no furniture. But I want to tell this story too, and I think I've told it to you before. Is I was being attacked in a sense over this divorce, and my wife had some serious addictions, and so I've got financial papers all over the living room floor. There's like no furniture, so I'm trying to figure out how to get through this, and I just stopped and I put some music on, and I lit a candle that I had, and I cranked down some good music, and I just started to dance.
Oh
I
boy,
love
yeah.
dancing. I get
Yeah,
into flow. And I love dancing.
me
And
too.
then my phone rings and it's my older sister. And she's calling to check on me. And, how are you doing? She's been through two divorces. And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm dancing. She said, you dancing? Who are you dancing with? I said, me. And she said something I'll never forget. She said, I wish I could do that. And I said, you can. Oh, no, I can't. No, no, I can't. No, I can't. But that's the root cause to most people's suffering is it's belief. It's belief. So challenge your beliefs and take ownership for your feelings. You can change them. People say, "Oh no, I just feel this way. I have no control over it." Well, you do. Okay? You have the power of decision and the power to change the channel. And you can do it in a second. You can shift your thoughts from this person who upsets you to thoughts of bliss, something that you love. And when you do that, the moment you do that, your frequency changes. And this is measurable. I've trained under the Institute of Heart Math for
Yeah,
years. Quick coherence technique and the M wave in the Inner Balance app, which you can put on your phone. It measures your frequencies, and the minute you change your thought from something negative to positive or positive to negative, it reads your heart coherence, which is the vibe you're putting out magnetically, reads it in an instant. And then whatever that vibe is, to quote Einstein again, you're drawing in. You're asking for more of whatever you feel. So pay attention to what you feel, examine what you're thinking to feel that way. Huh. And then take ownership for the decisions and the thoughts you choose to think. It's all about choice. And we talked choice and consequence the last show.
yeah,
There's a consequence to every choice, and every thought is a choice. And if you want to play victim and say, "Oh, I'm just the victim of my parents, the way they raised me, or the school system, or the economy. I mean, I'm a victim of my wife who left me. I'm just got this victim consciousness." Guess what? You're just asking for more.
yeah. John, I want to ask you about something because it came up in a previous show by a caller, and they said, can you talk about the stigma of bankruptcy? Now, we don't have enough time to do a whole show on that. But what we're talking about are people that had to make a conscious decision to let go of 9 times out of 10 something they loved. And
Hmm.
the stigma around it, which never was intended for that, it was intended for people to get a fresh start. But she was saying, I have a friend who really is holding on to a company that went under during COVID. And she said, look, I'm trying to support him, but I I don't know how, because he keeps getting more loans, pouring more money into it, and the company is not really going to make it. And there are situations in life when you have that, when you've started your dream, and you and I are entrepreneurs. We know this. We know what it's like to have to say goodbye to a business and start a new one, maybe. But this really hit my heart because I actually didn't know what to say, but I said, please listen to this show today,
Hmm.
right? Which she is doing. We have not even come close to address what people went through during COVID. We clearly shut the door on the financial business from 9 10. We didn't even address that. Nobody even talked about it. And we're kind of falling in the same thing here with people that tried to recover and they did their best. but the old ways weren't working anymore. And letting go seems to be one of the most difficult things that I believe entrepreneurs and business people are going through right now.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things that you might consider letting go of in this case.
Yep.
I was technically bankrupt. I never filed, and I did pay back all of my debt. But I have siblings who did file for bankruptcy, friends, people like that, and in their case, it was probably the best choice. I never really thought about a stigmatism to it, but I suppose there is. When you're trying to
Societal.
get a loan, yeah, yeah, have you ever filed bankruptcy before? Things like that. I never did because I just had this deep, deep, deep conviction that I will pay back everything I ever borrow, and that's so that it gets to belief. If you're living your life in fear, you're asking for trouble. Okay. If you fear bankruptcy, you're probably going bankrupt.
Yeah.
That vibe is going to cause it is.
Yeah.
And I never feared it. I just changed the channel. I'm not going to think about bankruptcy. I'm not going to focus on it because the minute I focus on it, I'm drawing it in. Why would I do that? I'm going to focus on growth. During these periods of nothingness and I wasn't out consulting, what was I going to focus on? I'll write a book. That's positive. That's creative. That's flow. I'm not going to sit here and like watch the phone and wait till it rings. No. So every moment of every day, we have a choice to think about something positive or something negative, something inspiring in spirit or something fearful. Okay. And the thing is that when you look at the ego thought system, which drives just about every human being on the planet until they realize they're not the ego, it's fear-based and it's dualistic. It's us and them and right and wrong and good and bad. And it's stigmatisms, things like that. And we grow up with it in sports. We grow up with it in politics. It's dualistic. Everything is dualistic. Well, at a spiritual level, it's not. Everything is atoned. It's at one. So when you start thinking about what am I thinking about? I'm not going to think about bankruptcy. I mean, COVID just shut me down completely from travel, from consulting. What did I do? I learned how to do things online. So
Exactly.
I'm going to develop and design some online courses. I now have an online AI twin, if you can believe that. So
Yeah, I do
I
believe
have a
it.
I have an AI twin. It's downloaded with 40 years of my work, books, hundreds
Wow.
of articles, hundreds of videos. All of these Chains Mastery shows are in my bot, and so people all over the world have 24/7 access to my coaching and my teaching, my training, and it's available in multiple languages. It's incredible. And I have conversations with my bot every week just to challenge it and feed it with more case
Hmm.
studies, if you will.
Wow.
So the other thing, Dr. Pat, I'll say this is that, yesterday I celebrated 38 years since starting my company, 38 years. Lots of ups and downs, lots of things I had to let go of along the way and say goodbye to. Um, but I've done that, I think, quite well. I've said goodbye to each passing day, each passing year, all the ups and the downs to focus on the only time that ever really matters, which is what I call the eternal now, always now. And so, how do I feel in the now all the time? And if my feeling in the now is agitated, worrisome, angry, grief, apathy, I mean, those low frequencies, instantly I catch myself. And it's like, John, that's not you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the ego. It's weighing you down. That's the ego. Okay. And you need to let that go. It's not you. You're in charge, not the ego. The ego is essentially the mind controlling you, the habitual mind. So let be long enough to understand that and be
Yeah.
aware, be awake. Let go of anything that's weighing you down. You have the power of choice. And when you do that, you're going to see things very differently.
Mm.
You're not going to see bankruptcy. You're not going to see doom and gloom. You're not going to
Yep.
see what everybody else is complaining about. You're going to see opportunity. You and I've talked about opportunity. You're going
Oh
to
my
see
God.
infinite. potential, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because each of us have it. John, this was a very, very powerful. What a great, and thank you for addressing that for my friend who's watching it. This was a great episode. I want to say to the audience, if you have missed any part of this, please go back. Now, people want to know, how do I get a hold of the videos you've done? And then I'd love to know your closing message.
Yeah, well, I'm easy to find. In fact, my website's being completely redone right now, and I'm offering a free ebook as soon as the new site's up and running. It's johnjmurphy.org, and like I say, I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. John J. Murphy Mystic, and my YouTube channel has over 350 videos of lots of tips. We've talked about nutrition and health and aging gracefully and leadership and team building. I mean, I've got a huge body of work in that space. So definitely check that out. And connect with me. I just say to people, connect with me. I'm a giver. Dr. Pat, that's another important thing I'd like to close with as a message is there's give and there's take. Always give first.
Yeah.
There are a lot of takers in life. There are people out pushing and selling and trying to, I get hit with dozens of people trying to sell me stuff every day. And they haven't learned that it's not a bad idea to start with building trust, building a relationship, building credibility, because they're just shooting themselves in the foot. Stop pushing and start pulling. And so it's important, I think, for anybody to realize that at the end of the day, it's about building healthy relationships. Change
Yeah.
mastery is about recognizing everything is changing all the time. Don't attach your happiness to anything temporary, which is just about everything. All right. And you're never alone. So what's guided me is I'm deeply spiritual. I read from the Tao Te Ching every morning. I've studied every day A Course in Miracles for 17 years now. I study the teachings of the Buddha. And the most important thing I do, Dr. Pat, is I apply it. It's
Yeah.
not theory for me. It's not, oh, that's nice to read about forgiveness and then start condemning things. No, you have to practice it. So like the Ring of Peace, it's a tool, put it to use, and then observe just how powerful it is.
Yeah. John, thank you so much for this. And I know my friend is grateful. I just got a text message from her. And I can't thank you enough. These shows are very powerful. And thank you for doing the work you're doing, because you do help us live a life full out. And you do help us understand that spirituality is the essence of so much. I know for me it is. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And yeah, for the audience out there, like John said, he has lots of information available. So make a decision. You have a choice. You have a choice. What will you be grateful about today? I'm grateful for John J. Murphy and all of you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Change Mastery Show with John J. Murphy, an opportunity to uncover, explore, and experience the path of transformation and illumination. Join Dr. Pat and me on the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Never miss an episode. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Connect with me on social media. And for questions, comments, or to explore my books and services, visit johnjmurphy.org. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world.